In Francis Ford Coppola's gangster epic The Godfather, we follow Don Vito Corleone, head of the most powerful of the 5 New York crime families, as he looks to transfer control of his empire to his reluctant son Michael. The aging Vito, in poor health and slipping into semi-retirement, mentors his son and guides him through the treacherous underworld of the mob, and helps, before his death, to orchestrate the 5 family hit, or baptism of fire, where at the end of the film, Michael wipes out all of his enemies and leaves New York for Nevada, where in the second film, he looks to legitimize the Corleone family business, but his plans are put on hold when he is subject to an assassination attempt and must find who the traitor in his family is. One key suspect is Frank Pentangeli, the man who is in charge of the Corleone crime family in New York after the death of Corleone captain Peter Clemenza. Michael tells businessman Hyman Roth that Pentangeli was behind the hit attempt and he'll take him out as revenge, and Roth, the man really behind the hit, utilizes the situation by trying to kill Pentangeli and blaming it on Michael. Pentangeli survives the hit, and the series of events leads him to flip and testify against Michael at the Senate hearings on organized crime. When Michael later arrives with Pentangeli's brother from the old country, Frank changes his mind about betraying mid-hearing, and thus Michael is spared from going to prison. Pentangeli later kills himself for his betrayal, after negotiating safety for his family with Tom Hagen. Now, one of the side characters who's there but never the center of attention throughout all of this is Willie Cicci. Willie Cicci is an enforcer for the Corleone crime family. He has very little screen time in the first film, being mentioned more so in the Godfather novel, with Vito Corleone's son-in-law Carlo Rizzi reporting to him, and he being tasked with protecting Sonny Corleone during the 5 family war. He clearly makes an impression on his superiors, as he's trusted enough to be assigned the task of killing mob boss Don Cuneo as part of the baptism of fire. He traps Cuneo at the revolving opening doors of the Elegante Hotel after Cuneo gets a haircut and shoots him dead. He is also present when Tessio is outed for his betrayal and taken away, searching him and presumably playing a part in his death. With new regimes come new faces, and Cicci, like Rocco Lampone and Al Neri, are the new faces of Michael Corleone's empire, replacing the likes of Paulie Gatto and Luca Brasi from Vito's era. Cicci has a memorable, recognizable face, and he does look a bit creepy. There's something sleazy looking about him. In any case, when Pentangeli becomes the street boss of New York, Cicci becomes his right-hand man, acting as his bodyguard, going with Pentangeli to the party at Lake Tahoe, where he and Pentangeli suggest Clemenza did not actually die of a heart attack. Cicci is with Pentangeli when he meets with the Rosato brothers, waiting outside and not knowing the Rosatos are killing Pentangeli inside the bar. When a cop approaches the scene, it all kicks off with the Rosatos storming out, guns a-blazing, and Cicci taking part in the street shootout, appearing to be shot and getting hit by a car, presumably dying along with Pentangeli. But of course, it's later revealed Frank survived, and so did Cicci. And what's more surprising is that Cicci testifies against Michael and the Corleones. Cicci's evidence is damning for Michael's character, as he says he killed Virgil Solozzo and the police captain, as well as the planning of other murders. However, due to the buffers in the family and not receiving any orders directly from Michael, Cicci is unable to directly implicate Michael in any of these major crimes, which is why Pentangeli's testimony is so important. It's likely the feds wanted Cicci's testimony to act as a character assassination before Pentangeli comes in with the slam dunk, directly implicating Michael in ordering murders. Cicci's reasons for his surprise appearance as a witness will largely be the same as Pentangeli's. Frank didn't know that Roth ordered the hit against him, as the circumstances all made it seem like Michael was behind it. Michael was all cozy with Roth, who backed the Rosatos. He didn't allow Pentangeli to go all out in his war with the Rosato brothers and told him to make peace. And the clincher is, of course, when one of the brothers says, "Michael Corleone says hello," as he strangles Frank. So Frank had nowhere to go. He thought his boss wanted him dead, and he turns to the feds. In a way, it's a testament to Cicci's loyalty to his boss that he went along with Pentangeli. But of course, on a macro level, Cicci has broken omerta, and under the mob's rules, he deserves to die. Cicci would likely have been frustrated and felt betrayed, not just that Michael tried to have Frank killed, but because he, as a man on the street level, would have first-hand experience with the war with the Rosato brothers as people. He was on the frontiers, in the trenches, and the news from the high ivory tower where Michael was having champagne was that the guys doing the fighting had to handicap themselves, concede to the Rosatos. Cicci would have been furious, thinking, like Frank, that Michael had lost his way, become disconnected from his roots. After the street shootout, Cicci would have been picked up and made an offer from the feds after being threatened with perhaps charges like murder and racketeering, and been offered a deal. It may have even been that at the time he had no idea that Frank Pentangeli was still alive, so really he had no tangible reason not to testify. And what of Cicci after he testifies? Well, this is where things get a bit weird, because him testifying is his last involvement in the film. We can assume he started his reduced sentence, doing his time and living out his life, maybe being released at some point, maybe even dying in prison from natural causes, or a Corleone contact taking him out. He wouldn't go into witness protection, because at the time the witness protection program didn't exist. If we take the real-life figure Joseph Alachi, who Cicci is supposed to have been based off, then like his real-life counterpart, we can assume Cicci spent the rest of his life in protective custody. But what really happens to him, we don't know. Could it be that Michael thought of Cicci as too small of a fish to go after him, that his testimony didn't amount to much, and Cicci may have been intentionally vague in his testimony to get a lighter sentence but not actually say too much, having his cake and eating it, similar to what Larry Barisi does in The Sopranos, where he testifies but pins murders on people who are already dead? Or, like Pentangeli, Carlo, Tessio and Fredo, would Michael give orders for Cicci to be found and taken out? I think the latter is more likely, given Michael's temperament, but he never mentions Cicci when the Corleones are discussing their plans. It's likely it's on the agenda, but way down in the list because Michael has bigger fish to fry. Which is why I find it strange that Cicci was actually supposed to be in The Godfather Part III, essentially playing the part of Joey Zaza. Cicci would be running what used to be the Corleone Empire, becoming a direct antagonist to Michael as Zaza was, but when Joe Spinell died, the character was rewritten into a new one. I've always found this very strange, as it seems bizarre that Michael would allow a man who ratted out on him to not only happily walk around the streets, but to run the Corleone family. I've read several draft scripts of The Godfather Part IV, which include Willie Cicci, and there doesn't seem to be any mentioning of his testifying or any of that stuff brought up and talked about. He just runs the streets and comes up against Michael. I could never quite understand how a rat would be allowed to live and thrive, and there's no explanation for it. Maybe that was part of the point in the original idea for the third film, that Michael is now legit. He does not want part in mob violence, so chooses to allow Cicci to live, and it hangs over his head that this guy betrayed him, with Michael fighting with the idea, fighting with his nature to take him out, but decides against it. That makes a bit more sense, and would add an interesting dynamic to the Michael-Willie beef, but it still poses the issue that the rest of the mob world would surely not allow a rat to walk free, and would be one of many problems with the third movie. Either that, or Cicci simply made amends with Michael and climbed the ranks, with the two men still having animosity towards each other, which apparently is closer to the original vision for the third film, with Cicci wanting revenge for Pentangeli, and Michael distrusting him and resenting the fact that he's mixed up in drugs, with Cicci eventually being gunned down by Vincent Mancini. But this is hard to believe really, with him being a rat. It feels like a way to shoehorn the character into the third film, but the story works better with the New York boss being Joey Zaza, not Cicci. It's possible that Spinell's death wasn't the only reason not to bring back Cicci, and Coppola knew it wouldn't make sense for a rat to be a boss, though I've never heard him in interviews or anything saying this. It's possible his fate was left vague intentionally, in case the filmmakers had plans to use the character in future movies, but as far as I am aware, Paramount notwithstanding, Coppola himself had no intention of making a follow-up to The Godfather Part II. There's lots of information on the internet about Cicci, Some things saying he died in prison, some saying he was bumped off, but unless these are being taken from alternative media like video games or something, it's all guesswork, as none of it is backed up by evidence. And as those who have read the Godfather novel know, the Michael Corleone timeline in the Godfather Part II doesn't actually happen in the book, so it's of no help to us here. So there you have it. What do you make of Cicci's testifying? Do you think he was justified? And what do you think happened to him after the Senate hearings? Let me know in the comments below, and thanks for watching. Before we finish, I'd just like to thank my patrons, Nicholas Curtis, Daniel P. and Stefan McManalis, and also my channel members, Michael Watwe, Rikers, Joe Grossberg, The New On Graham 24, Lone Wanderer, Tristan Foss, Bloody Quasar, Damien Irving, Stefan, Mark Patrick and Ross Ward.